Well, good morning to anybody who may chance to listen to this. I'm interested in the subject of friends, and I'd like to talk about friends. Of course, the background, I suppose, is having just recently finished reading Job. So I'm thinking about Bildad and Zophar and Eliphaz or Eliphaz, I'm not sure. My downstairs Bible isn't self-pronouncing, so if I read it upstairs, I know how to say the names, but I can't remember. And Elihu also, Job's friends, and they weren't friends; they were accusers. They stood for Satan. And so it's very interesting to read the arguments that they make and their assumptions and presumptions and their self-righteousness, their Pharisees, these three men. And I started thinking about the men in my life and how many of them actually do align with those characteristics. I would say most, because people don't like one another. When you say you've got a friend, really, probably what you mean is you have a rival. People can only be a friend if they love you. And the Bible says the love of many shall wax cold. And I think it already has happened. Not just in the last couple of years, but over centuries. We don't love one another. Maybe we never did, because, in the Holy Bible, we have to look to Jonathan for an image of love. And Jonathan loved David, I believe, because he admired him. He kind of hero worshipped him. And so he was a friend. If somebody has that estimation of you, then you do have a friend. But the likelihood of anybody that you know having that kind of regard, I suppose, is quite low. Very low. For a married man, you might find it in your wife, or wives, but again, it's unlikely. And Lamech said unto his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech. That's not a popular way to address your wife today, I think. We have this conceit of relationships and false love and friendship and partnership. The order has been completely perverted, the order of the world, over, well, I guess millennia, really. Since the garden. Been quite a long process, I guess. But this matter of friendship, you see, people, they think they have friends. They characterize the relationships in their lives as friendships. But it's a very surface level, shall we say. One thing I notice watching Neighbours, and I am an addict of Neighbours, not an addict, but I just have it on regularly during the day because I'm going through the entire series. And I don't watch it directly, I have it in a sidebar and pay attention to some scenes. And these sitcoms, and that's a very good example, and it's easily available on YouTube. They show you a depiction of life, and they represent friendships, and they just display a society of horrible people obsessing about one another and about themselves, absolute busybodies. And the conversations are vapid, vacuous. But if you overhear the conversations of anybody, really, if you go to the pub or to the church breakfast and hear what people are talking about, they're the same things. I went here, I went there. I think, they're just surface level gossip and relating the narrative of the day. There's no substance to those sorts of conversations. They're pointless. When I used to go to the pub with my Sikh friend, who's a very keen beer drinker, after a while I realised that he tends to sit with a table of 7 or 8 people sometimes, and the conversation is just I can't participate because I just find it so dull, the things that people say and talk about. And if you throw some truth into the mix, then you're not really welcome. You're only going to upset somebody. I just can't be bothered, because I've been walking alone now, perhaps many of us have, for many years, but really all of my life, I think, because my experience living in Italy, that really inured me to the idea of a solitary life, because I knew that I wasn't within my tribe, and the language was the main thing, of course, that made that clear. I didn't understand what was going on at all for the first, quite a while actually, before I began to get the hang of how they do speak over there. But friendship is just a conceit. In the most part. Even they used to say, well, at least my mother loves me or loved me. But these days there are mothers that are plotting to take your life before you're even born. You can't really rely on that one. And then mothers come to resent children, and then they're used as pawns in some sort of weird psychodrama that's been learned off the television. There's a biblical requirement for a mother and a father to love their issue. But that's, you need to read the Bible as well to understand that. Well, you need to read the Bible. You can't just. There must be a biological requirement of love, or something closely resembling it, to assure the survival of the species, I guess. But latterly, of course, it's become clear to us that those that are in charge of us and are in charge of the messages that we are bombarded with are not particularly interested in the survival of our species. Just some thoughts this day. God bless anybody who's here.